Boom. For the third time. Hey, everyone. My name is James. I'm the Chief of Staff of Community and Culture. Just want to welcome everyone again to our Open Wednesdays. This month, as noted, we are continuing our learning, our our political and financial education workshop. We're going to be engaging and learning more about bookstores and really learning from folks that are stewarding, that are building, that are imagining bookstores in our communities and outside of our community. And so just really want to create space today to welcome Frugal Bookstore and Uncle Bobbies and give you guys space first to just share more about these bookstores and essentially, I think we sort of gave you some questions, but I guess even before you share more about the bookstore, we would love to learn about you all and what brought you out to this journey or this opportunity. And we can start with Clarissa, maybe. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Clarissa Cropper Egerton. I am co-owner of Frugal Bookstore. We are located in Nubian Square in Roxbury in Massachusetts. And we have, we've been around since 2008. We've been in Nubian Square, it'll be almost 5 years this July, I believe. So how we started, I guess a lot of people want to know. So the Frugal Bookstore, it actually was a books that was located in a furniture store in Boston and Roxbury. So we had a small selection of books in a furniture store. And we actually had an opportunity to have a standalone bookstore in the spot that we were in, and actually was occupied by B&N before we moved to that spot in Washington Park Mall. And so we were in there for, I don't know, maybe like 9 years, 8 or 9 years. And then, like I said, we moved to Nubian Square. And so our selection of books, we carry books primarily by authors of color. We carry all genres of books, so children, adults, fiction, nonfiction, reference. We sell cards, we sell Bibles, we sell some artwork, we sell, I don't know if you guys can see, but we have some gift items like mugs and like stationery and purses and things like that. So a lot of people, if you know, people who are from Boston, if you remember a Nubian Notion, we're actually in the location where they had their annex, where they had their addition. And so it's been a cool journey. It kind of fell into my lap. My husband worked at Frugal Furniture Store / the small selection of books when it first started. And the person who actually owned it sold the business to him. It was nowhere near it is now, right? So it was really just a small, maybe like a bookcase or two of books by authors of color, and it's grown into, like I said, a standalone bookstore. But we pride ourselves on carrying books and providing books in our community that reflect and look like the members and the demographics in our community in Roxbury and the surrounding neighborhoods of Boston. Was there anything else? I don't know, did I miss anything that I need to add?
Yeah, no, I think that is a good start. So maybe I'll just give space for Justin to share more about Uncle Bobbies, and then maybe we can just go back and forth maybe.
Okay.
Well, hey everybody, I'm Justin. I'm the general manager of Uncle Bobbies. Just want to thank you for welcoming me to your space. It's cool to be kind of connected to Boston again. I actually went to Brandeis, so I spent a considerable amount of time in the Boston area, and I try to get back at least once a year to see some friends. Obviously, COVID got in the way of that, so I haven't been back for a while, but as soon as it's safe again, I'll be back up. I'll be on the pike. So Uncle Bobbies is only 3 years old. We started in 2017, and it was founded by Marc Lamont Hill. And he's been in the book space for quite a long time. He's always had a passion for the independent bookstore space. And in the neighborhood of Germantown, in the Germantown section of Philadelphia, there were no indie bookstores, and particularly bookstores that serviced the Black community. So he wanted to provide that as well. And when the idea of Uncle Bobbies was being conceived, the idea also came to double as a coffee shop, right? Because there also was not coffee shops that made the Black community feel seen and valued and safe in that way. So it was kind of this hybrid model from the beginning to be a bookstore and a coffee shop. My original role was more back-end finance, payroll in the beginning. And in 2019, I took over pretty much all of the operations of the store. And so for the last 2 years, that's been my primary role. Our mission is very similar to what Clarissa said, right? Like, we carry books that reflect the neighborhood that we're in. We prioritize Black authors, we prioritize Black content, but we're a very inclusive space. We have other communities of color on our shelves. We leave space for the LGBTQ community. We do the best that we can to make marginalized communities feel seen and valued. And one of the things that Marc said about the space well, two things. We pride ourselves in our curation, right? And it's the details, right? So you go to Barnes and Noble, you go to some of these other bookstores, and like anything pertaining to Black kind of gets crammed into this one kind of category, right? And it's like every book, whether it's Michael Eric Dyson wrote it, or it's about Michael Jordan, right? It seems to end up being in the same kind of space. Whereas if you come to Uncle Bobbies, we have something specifically on like incarceration and policing. We have something specifically on Africa. We have something specifically on the Middle East. So you can kind of get a more like well-rounded 3D experience because Black people, as we all know here, are not all one thing. We're not monoliths. So we try to capture that. And the other thing that Marc says is he wanted the space to be a place where an older Black man or a Black person can talk to a younger Black person about these books, and these kinds of conversations can happen across generations, across interests, across all these different ways that we can intersect. And thankfully, COVID got in the way of that a little bit, but before we shut down, that was the place where you can kind of have these really cool conversations about books, about the content, and really find like-minded folks and enjoy the space.
Yeah, I'm curious about you all. What was the journey to like sort of opening these like bookstores and being able to sustain it in the ways that you guys are sustaining it? I think a lot of folks here in our community, also, in Boston, as you mentioned, there aren't many Black-owned bookstores here, and bookstores, period, right? And I think that there's a lot of interest in folks really starting to build out business plans and sort of partnering with folks and like, what does that look like? And maybe sort of what are the opportunities you guys saw on that journey, and like what were some of the challenges that y'all still face?
So so for us, well, for me, the beginning, I actually wasn't there for the beginning. I came from like corporate America. I worked at big banks like Bank of America, Santander Bank, which was Sovereign Bank. So I came from like a corporate background, and so to experience like the beginning. But what I do know is that we were fortunate because the gentleman who owned the furniture store, he was a Jewish guy, right? So we were fortunate in the sense that at that time, when we started to like work and pick it up, and then ultimately own the bookstore, some of those things have already been established, right? So some accounts with publishers, some just, you know, what you find out, what I found out is it's a lot of who you know, it's a lot of credit, right? So unfortunately for our people, credit is a huge issue, and getting credit with like book publishers and things like that, you know, they want you to give them everything, you know, you got to have references on like you, it's so much. And when you are first starting, it's hard to say, okay, I have these references with these publishers or distributors or things like that. So we were fortunate in a sense because some of those accounts had already been established, and so we just took them on. And so what we did was we knew that there was a struggle for other Black bookstores. We worked with, we actually did a lot of wholesale in the beginning, where we would sell to other bookstores. So we sold to bookstores in some in Philly, Black and Noble. We sold to some in like Chicago, because we actually had the buying power to do that, and we used it to help other bookstores. You know, some of those bookstores that we used to deal with, they're not even around anymore, but we knew that, listen, this is what we want to do for our fellow bookstores, right? Our fellow bookstore owners and establishments. We want to help them buy books. So they would buy books through us, and we would like wholesale. So that was an advantage that we had, that we really we prided ourselves in, and just being able to provide that, because we knew how hard it is to really get in the door of you know, and that publishing and getting terms and getting books on account and 30 days, 60 days, you know, whatever the terms were. So we knew the struggle, and we wanted to help out. And what we were able to do, especially maybe like in the first like 5 years, that's what we pretty much did. You know, we had like the retail in the store, people would come in and buy books, but we also had this like small kind of like wholesale, where we would sell to other booksellers. So that's how, and you know, and with that, we were able to partner with booksellers. We were able to like events that we would have. It was, oh, let me call, you know, this bookseller. Oh, we have this author coming, and they would say, hey, they might want to come to Boston to your bookstore. So just that network, building a network in that small community within, you know, for Black bookstores was important, and it still is important. But we also know that there are not a lot of bookstores, you know, Black-owned bookstores around. You know, a lot of them have gone, even before COVID, a lot of them had, you know, gone out of business.
Yeah.
I would say for us, I guess similar to Clarissa, our origin story is a little bit atypical as well. Having Marc be the founder of, you know, of Uncle Bobbie's was kind of the advantage that most small businesses don't have, right? We had a huge platform from day one, and a lot of people knew about us, and a lot of people, you know, came to support early. But what Clarissa said is 100% true about the need for capital up front. You know, you have to not only just the physical build out of your shelves and your stores and registers and things like that, but it's maintaining that inventory and making sure you have the new releases every week, but also have the backlist of like the kind of classics that your customers would go for. One thing I did notice, because like Clarissa, we're very similar in certain ways. I did not have a book background at all before getting into Uncle Bobbie's, which I have realized over the last couple of years has both been a hindrance in some ways and has been an advantage in other ways. Going to some conferences, and I've had a few jobs in the nonprofit space, and what I've learned is that a lot of people who open up bookstores, similar to people who open up nonprofits, are filled with the passion but don't have business background. So they get up and running, they get going full speed ahead, and they have the background in the work, they have the background in the subject matter, but when it comes down to balance sheets, P&Ls, cash flow statements, they don't have that background, and it can hurt you in a lot of ways. So like Clarissa was saying, if you want to establish credit, there are certain things and certain documents that people are going to want to have, and you need to not only understand how to, you know, create these kind of documents, but how to read them and understand them as well. So me coming from more of a financial background, I was able to bring a lot of that to Uncle Bobbie's. So when I took over, you know, there were some systems I was able to implement, because you mentioned sustainability, right? Because that's, you know, getting open is really hard. Staying open is like 10 times harder than that, if you can imagine, because all the statistics are just not in the favor of any small business, right? Like first year, 5 year, all those numbers are kind of abysmal. So the sustainability is really important, and knowing the difference between your profit and loss, how that could look really good, but if your cash flow statement doesn't look great, you're in trouble. How you can have a lot of cash, how you can have a good P&L, but if your balance sheet isn't great because you have a ton of debt, that can also put you under. So understanding those kind of business 101 components is really critical. Also, if you're dealing with staff, you plan to hire, understanding some of these HR values. What are the labor laws in your state? What are the local labor laws in your city, right? Like understanding these very technical, like really boring parts of the business is something that I think is just as important as the fun stuff, the picking out the books, the creating the culture, and all of that. Is, you know, you can't forget about, you know, the boring nerd stuff that can really provide that sustainability. The second quick thing I'd say, because I'm sure there'll be some other questions where we could touch on this, is like understanding what separates you from any, you know, bookstore or online book presence. Like, you know, you have to make your spot a destination spot, right? Because what will make someone skip that button on Amazon that can have it to their house in 2 days and come to your store to buy the same book, right? Like, so you have to find those whys. Like, what are the whys that a customer will choose to come to my bookstore, as opposed to going somewhere else, right? Like that's also something that I think is very important for a bookstore specific. You have to, you know, create a certain level of culture, because people can get the product cheaper and faster in a different place.
Thank you, Justin, for sharing that, and Clarissa for your insight. I think one question that we all have, because we've all survived a global pandemic, is what has been the impact on COVID has had on Frugal Bookstore and Uncle Bobbie's. What did it look like to pivot and adapt during this season?
So our primary business, right, how our sales and things came primarily from in-person visits and purchases and things like that. So like we had not always had, but we maybe like before COVID, the past, I don't know, year, maybe two, almost, we had a website. We didn't see a lot of sales, a lot of, you know, people didn't really purchase, you know, on our website for a number of reasons. We were still, even though this was so COVID was 2020, like, you know, say 2018 or so, think 2018, okay, you know, most businesses, they have websites. And we had one, but it just, we didn't, I guess you can say, we really didn't pay a lot of attention to it, to be honest with you, like, because we had so many, like, we hardly ever sold any books on our website. And so when we did get a book, or if somebody did purchase a book on our website, it was like, oh my goodness, oh, we got a sale. It was like a really happy moment. Like, we were just like, oh my gosh. And so as far as the updating and things like that, we kind of put it to the side because it just wasn't like right there, right? It wasn't like a focus. But when the pandemic hit, we knew that we needed to pivot, and we knew that we needed to regroup and refocus our attention on the website, because with things shutting down, businesses, we were closed. I think, I don't know, the first like week or two in March of last year. People started calling us, they started emailing us, oh, can you ship this book? Oh, can we, so we were like, okay, we need to step up on our game with on our website. And so that really became, that was the focus. That was really the focus, as a way like, okay, people are not able to come out and come in the store and shop, but people are ordering online. And we started seeing that. So we started getting more notifications of people ordering on our website. So we changed the layout, the design, all of that. We, changed policies or update. We just updated our website. And it was going very well. And it actually still is. I will say that I think now what we're starting to see with things opening back up again slowly, more and more people they're still ordering online, but we're also getting a lot of people coming back into the store. But our sales, our online sales definitely, they skyrocketed. And unfortunately, with the murder of George Floyd, now a lot of non-white people, they wanted to educate themselves, and they wanted to, okay, I want to support Black owned business, and I want to know, like, what is the Black experience? What has it been like? A lot of these books are not new to us. We've been selling these type of books since 2008, but it was a surge now, with the unfortunate death, and so they really skyrocketed. But before that, I would say maybe like early May, we actually we kind of got a little concerned, so we started a GoFundMe campaign. And we were like, okay, what, at first we were just like, a couple of people put it in our ear. They're like, have you thought about starting one? And we were like, nah, we really don't want to ask people for money. It's kind of like, I don't know. But, we ultimately decided, okay, let's try this out. Let's set this goal at like, I think our goal was 20,000. And when we launched it, or after we launched it, maybe like, I don't know, within like 24 hours, we actually surpassed that goal. So we were like, oh my goodness, wow, people really are, they want to help out. They want to see us thrive and survive. They don't want us to close. And we still are, honestly, still like so grateful. And we were just like, oh my goodness, it was almost overwhelming, because doing this, you see customers come in with their children, their families. We know a lot of our customers by names, because honestly, Boston is not big, it's small. So people know us. They've watched our children grow up in a store. We've watched some of their children grow up. And so it just was a really humbling experience for us. And it showed us that while our community cares about us, they want to see us stay in this community. So the outpour of support, donations, gift cards, online book sales, it really just, it rose so much. And that just was a journey. And it took us, to a place that we had not experienced, like the volumes that we were getting, almost to the point where it was like, it was a little too much, if I could say that. Only too much because at this point, now, this is still the pandemic. All of these books, like, Dr. Kendi's How to Be Anti-Racist, White for July, all of these books, now they're sold out. And now you can't even get them from the publishers, because the books are printed overseas. It's they have to go to collections. It's this whole process, right? To actually get these books, that we were just like, wow. And with things being backed up and delayed, you know, it just really almost was like, oh my goodness, it was looking like, can we even handle it? So during the summer, this was like June, July, we had, because we were processing orders in the bookstore. Like, I don't know if you guys know, but we probably have like 1,800 square feet of space. We do have like a basement area where we kind of package up, but it was, we could not have, we couldn't have done it on our own, because we had probably close to like 20,000 online orders. So we had to hire a fulfillment company to help us out. You know, we had to integrate our e-commerce site with theirs, you know, so it was a lot of that. And but overall, you know, I would say that it definitely was, and it has been, a learning experience for us. It took us out of like our comfort of being like this, and we still are, you know, a small independent bookstore, but we got a glimpse of like, wow, this could really, and this is really taking off, right, in this direction. And so it's just been a great experience overall, I would say.
For us, you know, to answer the question, right, what COVID did first and foremost was it shut down our biggest asset, which was the physical space, right? That's what set us apart from a Barnes and Noble or an Amazon. That's literally what set us apart. We closed for 5 months. So, you know, there was I'd say the biggest challenge, honestly, wasn't even the business aspect of it in the beginning. It was the human part of it, right? Because when we did close, our team, you know, I had a team of like 18 people. So like 17 people were under me. So just like, how are they going to be able to pay their bills? You know, how are we going to navigate the unemployment situation? How are we going to, you know, so that was the biggest challenge for me, was just trying to take care of the people and make sure everyone, you know, like it took, myself included, it took some of us like 2 months to get like your first unemployment like check, right? Because Pennsylvania's antiquated system was so far backed up, and it was just, you know, a mess in that way. But like Clarissa said, we also did a GoFundMe. It was slightly less reluctant. I mean, we had like a day where we was like, I don't know, but then I was like, we kind of need it. So we, you know, we put it up, and it went very, very well. And it was this kind of like, I don't know, you knew you had the love of the community, but seeing it in this way, I don't know, hit different, right? Because, you know, they were just giving us money with nothing in return. They just wanted us to see us, you know, sustain ourselves. And I think what that did for me was I heard a line a while back, was like, don't let a crisis go to waste. And when we saw the support and we were closed, what I said to myself was, all right, we need to be better. Like, how can we improve? How can we use this downtime, this quiet time, to be better, so that all the people that are supporting us, that we're still around 10, 15, 20 years from now, right? Because we did have a lot of early success and a lot of money was coming in, but there was a lot of mismanagement earlier on. And so while money was coming in, it was quickly going out the window, and it was going in places no one knew where it was. It was just a lot going on, which is part of the reason I took over in 2019. So when we closed last year, I was, you know, it was some of the things I wanted to implement, some systems I wanted to put in. So that gave us an opportunity to, you know, pivot in some ways and make different decisions across the board. And, you know, like Clarissa mentioned, the online presence is also something that took off. We had no choice. You know, we had to do virtual events. We had to sell books online, something that we didn't do pre-pandemic, something we talked about. And the difference, I say that Clarissa, what we do differently is they do their fulfillment in-house, is we partner with bookshop.org, who handles pretty much all of the tech, all of the fulfillment. We just got to promote and send people to the link, right? Which is, it's good for us because it really fits what we do really, really well, which is culture and curation. And, you know, I don't have to try to manage the fulfillment team because I don't know that business line enough, you know, particularly last year when we were in the middle of it. So that relationship has worked out pretty well for us. We're not necessarily looking to bring the fulfillment in-house. And even for our apparel, We have an apparel company that does the fulfillment, handles our online as well. So again, we could focus on what we do pretty good. But I think the biggest thing is we pivoted online, and then we also used the downtime, the 5 months, to improve our own operations and our system, so that when we did reopen last August, we had more of a keen eye on, expenses and waste and loss. And our coffee shop business didn't return as well. The books and retail has performed pretty strong because we have the online component. Coffee took a major hit because we don't let anyone sit in the store. It's doing as well as you can be considering, but that is one thing I am looking forward to a little bit post-pandemic, is the coffee side of the business increasing a bit, because we do invest a lot in terms of getting at that side of our business as well.
Thank you so much. Oh, Jenny, go ahead.
We have like 20 minutes, so I wasn't sure if anyone in the audience wanted to ask a question, but I have like 2 more questions for anyone that's looking at the YouTube later on. They're interested in supporting a bookstore or getting into the business. We pride ourselves on helping them understand the costs of the thing before jumping in. So what are the startup costs? I know that for both of you guys, you weren't necessarily at the origin story. So whatever you can offer in that space, or what are some operating costs that you find is very important for you to keep in mind as a bookstore in 2021?
I guess I can go. So for us, it took about $250,000 to open, right? All total costs included. I think you can do, for the space that we have, you can do it for probably less, considering if you don't have the coffee component. It took a lot of investment to build out the bar and some of the equipment we had to buy.
Quick question, what's the space that you currently have, just for details wise?
It's about 900 square feet. Yeah, so not a terribly large space, but I know a lot of money went into building the bar up and from the architecture perspective. And then we spent a lot of money on the books, which I don't necessarily, we probably spent about $30,000 or $40,000 up front for books, which isn't necessary. Just to get started is what we did. Like I said, we were fortunate enough to have some resources, but it's not required. I know plenty of bookstores who open up with a lot less, and there are ways to position your store to make it feel like you have a lot more books than you do, holding, facing out your books instead of like using the spine. It really like stretches out your shelves and makes it look like, your shelves are full, even if you don't have the same number of titles. The things to worry about or keep track on, obviously labor costs, as it pertains to like your hours of operation, managing who's doing what tasks. Like you do want to control your labor costs. But I'd say just as important, like Clarissa mentioned, is managing your inventory, making sure you are being, especially in the beginning, you are being surgical with the books that you are choosing and spending money on, and understanding what's selling, what's not selling, because every week a new book is popping up. And if you are not positioning yourself to have these new books, people will go elsewhere for them, right? And you have to make sure that the books you're selling can pay for the books you've already bought and for the books that you need to buy, right? So it's a juggling game, particularly in the beginning, because a lot of the publishers are not going to give you credit right off the front, unless you have a really, really strong personal financial situation. They want you to just buy the books up front. You sell them, you buy some more, right? Like, so just really picking what books you get up front, you start your inventory with, and what books you're going to choose week to week is really, really critical to getting off the ground, and keeping track, being very, very meticulous on your sales data. What books sold, what genres sold, what kind of books in your children's section sold, because that's going to inform what books you buy next week, right? Like you have to be like, just like I said, surgical with all of those details, particularly up front. You know, if memoirs are going hard and your politics books aren't, then you need to start focusing on that for your future purchases. And if there's some politics books that aren't selling, you got to return those, get them off the shelves and make room for books that are selling, right? And it's okay to start slow, right? You don't have to, like I said, fill the shelves. You can, you know, be creative. You can, if you don't have a ton of books, you can put like decorative pieces on your shelves that will take up that space, that will still look and feel great, and still give you that vibe. But I'd say focusing on inventory would be the one big key up front that you should focus on.
Thank you, Justin. Clarissa, please feel free to share, and just want to highlight for the both of you guys, there's 2 questions in the chat.
Yeah, I was actually trying to answer the questions, but I'll just answer them, and I'll answer them instead of typing them out. So I know, like in the beginning, a lot of the books that we started out with were actually remaindered books. So remaindered books are books that have like gone out of circulation with, you know, like major publishers, and they're, I don't know how many now, but there were a few different remainder houses, like Book Depot, Book Enterprises, I don't know, there's a couple of more that I can't think of their names, but so a lot of the books that we were getting in the beginning were remaindered books. So, you know, a brand new book that a publisher has, for whatever reason, and maybe it's not selling so great, I don't know, whatever the reason is, you know, it will go to this remainder house. And so the remainder houses would sell them at a heavy discounted price. And what that did for us was, you know, we would buy, I don't know, I'm going to hold up this book. Not that this book is in remainder, but I'm just going to hold up a book. You know, a $15 book, they would sell for like, I don't know, $5, $6. We'll, you know, sell it for maybe $8 or $9, right? So it's that small margin, that room, you know, to profit helped us buy more, because, and then also our name, and in our case, Frugal Bookstore, frugal for, you know, so people are like, oh, frugal books, these books are frugal, they're cheaper, right? They should be frugal, right? And so that also helped us with our buying. We would buy, you know, all of these books in bulk at cheaper prices that we would mark up just a little bit, you know, not more than the list price, but more than what we paid for them. And it helped us like get more books. And so what we did with that was we used that, you know, going to these remainder houses. Now, these are our references, right? So we use that like credit, we use it in that way to help us buy more. And, you know, Justin is right. Like a lot of publishers, they want you to pay up front for books. So it's like, well, how do I pay up front for books that I don't even know is going to sell, right? I don't even know if these books are going to sell or how long it's going to take these books to sell. And so it makes it really hard. What I will say with some of them is that, you know, they would work with us. So maybe like the first 3, 4, maybe 5 purchases we had to buy up front. But then after that, and they saw that, okay, they're buying regularly, let's offer them maybe like 30 days net, you know, to pay back. So that definitely helped us in the beginning. And it still helps us. And as far as, you know, again, Justin was head on, like as far as the books, knowing what books are the big sellers. Like for us, years ago, like the fiction books, a lot of like Zane, a lot of like those type of fictional, those erotic, you know, a lot of those books actually sold better in our store. But we've seen that as years have gone by, like children's books have always been a big seller because where we're located at in Boston, we're surrounded by schools. So we're surrounded with educators are coming in, you know, teachers, educators, things like that. So our children's books honestly have always been a big hit, a big seller. And, you know, our children's book selection, we try to, you know, have like a vast selection of children's books. And so, and the children's books, honestly, even to this day, they're still going strong. You see so many children's books, you know, coming out, and especially because they look like our children, you know, they look like children in the neighborhood. And so when you know, children would come in, their faces would light up and they would get so excited because they could actually picture themselves on the cover of these books or inside these books with these stories. So definitely knowing you know, what's selling, and it is a juggle. You don't always know what's going to be the hot book, and you don't want to buy too many of that book, and you don't want to buy too, you know, less of that book, because like Justin said, people will go other places. Oh, you sold out of that book. Okay, I'm about to go on Amazon. Let me see if Amazon got, you know, so people would say that to us. Oh, you don't have that book? I'm going to Amazon. How do you compete with Amazon? Right? Like it was, give us a chance. You know, we would talk to our customers like, okay, give us a chance to get this book for you. When do you need this book by? You know, so we would try to like really, you know, talk to people, and they're like, okay, I'm gonna give you a chance. I really need this book by this date, but I'm gonna see how long it's gonna take you to get it. And so, you know, we're family owned, you know, people know us by first name, like I said before. So we would be like, man, listen, just give us an opportunity. And they were like, okay, I'll wait for the book. So you know, just the support from the community, always, right? Like we wouldn't be here to this day if it weren't for our community supporting us, and outside communities as well. But I call them our A1s from day ones. You know, they were with us in the mall. They followed us down Warren Street, you know, so they're still with us. I'm sorry, I think I lost my train of thought, but yes, inventory, managing the inventory, knowing or trying to know and staying on top of it. There's so many books come out all the time, like you can't even keep up with the books that are coming out, but trying to, you know, maybe say, okay, let me get a few of this to see how this works out, or no, I'm going to get, you know, a Promised Land. You know, we knew that was going to be a big seller. So we knew that, that we wanted to buy that, and we needed to buy that in bulk so that we didn't leave room for someone to say, okay, I'm going to go somewhere else to get it. In our case, since we're the only, you know, bookstore, Black-owned bookstore in Boston, yes, we have Barnes and Nobles, but people are like, nope, I'm going there. I'm going there to get that book. And we just made sure that we had certain books. Now there's some books that we don't buy enough of. I'm gonna say, you know, be honest, there's some, but we really try to be very mindful and conscious and knowing, okay, I think this is gonna be, and sometimes, you know, we're not always right. And then we're stuck with all these books that, you know, and then we'll mark them down, and then, okay, they're discounted 20-30% off. Okay, buy the book, you know, something like that. So yeah.
Yeah, this has been so great. I feel like I'm getting all these like trade secrets from you all. So super appreciate this. I know we have a couple more minutes left. Just want to give folks here space to ask any questions that you have that have been burning to ask. So feel free to just come off chat or mute and answer and ask your question.
Hey, James, can I answer Alex's question?
Sure.
Yeah, Alex, I want to, you asked how long can you expect a book to stay in inventory? And that's one of those questions that, like, I think me not being in the book industry space give me a, you know, because when you talk to other people in the business and in the industry, there's like these kind of rules of thumb that it could take a book like 4 quarters to sell. To me, that doesn't make any sense. To me, if you're buying books to try to sell it within 4 quarters, you're going to run out of money, right? So the way we look at it is we have the books that we need to sell like now, and then we have the books that that keep us relevant as a bookstore, right? So I'm not trying to buy a book and hope that it sells in the next 4 weeks, because I want my bookstore manager picking books that we know people will come in and get off the shelves, particularly new releases, right? So we try to curate that in that way. The rest of the books we buy, we still want people to rush and buy them off the shelves. And what happens is a lot of times people come to Uncle Bobbie's without knowing what book they want. So that's when they peruse the shelves and they try to find other titles. But like, I think you want to buy your books with a certain level of urgency, right? Like, don't buy books and like, oh, well, hopefully in 4 quarters, this book will be gone. It's like, no, why did you buy this book on feminism? What is it about this book that you think if someone just sees the spine or someone sees the cover is going to grab it, right? To me, that's the kind of urgency that you should think about when you're bringing a book into your store. Does it fit the brand? Does it fit, have customers talked about it, right? Like sometimes, like in the beginning, we didn't think fiction made a lot of sense. But over the last 2 years, people were talking about fiction a lot. So we're building the fiction section out, right? With the intent to get these books moving. So I think if you bring in a new title and no one has bought that, particularly if you featured it and no one's bought that in the first couple of weeks, you can pivot away from that, right? Put a couple maybe on the back shelf and maybe someone will get to that. But I would buy books the same way someone would buy like car dealers, right? When they put a new car out, they're not hoping that it would sell in like 3 or 4 quarters. They trying to get them cars off the shelf. And I think we need to have that type of urgency if you're thinking about having a bookstore, because you spend real money on this product. And the longer it spends on that shelf, you're losing value, right? Because that one, you're not getting the money from the sale. And 2, that book is taking up space from another book that might actually sell a little bit faster, right? So I would have the intention of being very, very urgent when you're thinking about the books that you pick, and you want to get them out the door as soon as possible.
I agree. Yeah, I definitely agree. We've definitely had some bad buys in the past that would made us think, why do we buy that? Why do we buy so many of that? Thinking that this is going to be like that next bestseller. So being intentional about the books that you have, and it's hard because, right, people come in and they want everything, and you want to try to accommodate customers. So someone had a question about special orders. So that's what we do special orders. So if there are books that we don't have on our shelves, we do special orders for books, because we, like, again, going back to, we want someone to give us the opportunity to try to get them that book, right? And so we'll tell customers, let us check stock and availability. Let's go through our publishers and distributors to see if we can get that book, just so that they're not going, to like an Amazon or a Barnes and Nobles or something like that, that they, keep it local, keep it within, a small business. And so a lot of people they take advantage in our store, they take advantage of the fact that we can do that we offer special orders for customers.
Do you get much of demand for pre-orders for certain releases in order to kind of gauge your demand for that particular upcoming release? Like, let's say everyone's like, I want Amanda Gorman's The Hill We Climb, right? And so, there's 50 people who want it based on history of pre-orders versus actual sales once it's released. Does that give you an idea of how many should order for all those people who didn't tell you up front?
Absolutely. Though that actually really helps. And on our website, so we have books that we have pre-order specials and things like that. But no, that's a great point that you made, because so that we have an idea. So if there are a lot of people, especially Amanda Gorman's book, especially Sister Soldier's new book, we know that those books people are going to be looking for. They're going to be they want to have it. So we definitely offered pre-order specials on those highly sought after books. And it helps us, like you said, gauge and have an idea, get a sense of, you know, how many books should we order based off of these pre-orders.
I think we don't really focus on pre-orders as opposed to similar books that we've actually sold in the past as to what determines how many we should order up front. So when A Promised Land came out, we knew that was going to be in heavy rotation, but we looked at Michelle Obama's book and how many did we sell during the particular window of time that we were looking at. And that's actually how we gauge it, because we know that, you know, probably those same physical amount of people are going to come back into the store. So I like using like the actual data, and, you know, pre-orders do help, you know, but I like using previous sales data. What did this really successful novel do, you know, a year ago that is very similar to this Britt Bennett book that came out last year, right? And like, all right, well, we sold 30 of those the first week. Britt's profile is a little bit bigger. Let's get 50 in, right? So you know, we are very like anal about our previous sales history and data. So we try to keep it as accurate as possible so we can rely on that data moving forward. So I love looking at past sales to determine, you know, what we can order moving forward.
Sorry if this has already been answered before since I was a bit late. What's the kind of relationship you have with book clubs? Since I found y'all through Roxbury Reads, and like formerly I had seen y'all in the plaza on Warren Street or Washington Street, and then was like, oh, right here in Nubian Square, awesome. So like I know that Akuna from the Roxbury Library will like deliberately order books from y'all. So I was wondering, are there a lot of relationships like that, of like knowing that book clubs are out there and would like to order for all their members, because there's just not going to be enough library copies at libraries soon enough?
Yeah, so we, I would say, especially now, what we've seen are a lot more book clubs that have been, you know, created. A lot of people are starting these, you know, book clubs. So pre-pandemic, you know, we maybe had like a handful of book clubs that would order from us in bulk, and we would offer them, and we still do offer them like a bulk discount if they order a certain amount of books. It's usually like 10 or 15 books all at once, and, you know, we'll extend a discount to the bookseller, to the book clubs, as a way of okay, if you guys get all your books at one time, you know, we can offer you this discount. You don't have to wait for this person to get it, that person to get it. Like it's all here. So we're seeing more and more book clubs ordering from us, you know, because they want to support local, they want to support Black owned, and they want to support independent bookstores.
This was so good. Thank you so much, Clarissa and Justin, for being in the space. And Kate, who has Paper Cuts Bookshop in Jamaica Plain, who's been chatting and connecting in the chat. And then Roy, who's been a previous person that shared the space, who's interested in having a brick and mortar bookshop. So thank you so much for being in this space. We value your feedback so much. Clarissa, I will be in touch, because you were named as a business that we love by the community and we want to support. So
thanks so much.
Look out for an email.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm from Philly, so I'll definitely be at Uncle Bobbie's when I get back home at some point. So just
that's what's up. Looking forward to seeing you then.
yeah.
And me too. I have family in Philly. Actually, right before the pandemic, Marc actually came to the bookstore, and it was, you know, like a brief. I think he was on his way to, I don't know, maybe BU or some Northeastern college, and we were like, scoop them up. And you know, our favorites, our Black Twitter and our peoples, they made it possible to bring him in. So it was a pleasure to have him.
That's dope. Yeah, Marc's dope like that. Yeah, he loves Blacks. If he's in someone's neighborhood and there's a Black bookstore, he's trying to get in there. So yeah. Marc.
I know, Justin, I've been looking at your book background, like the shelves. I'm like, oh my gosh, that'd be I just want to peruse, but I'm good.
I have
Sierra,
a
you have
question
your,
for Justin. I'm sorry. Justin, is your sweatshirt available on your site? Because I like it.
Yes, it should be. I don't think we discontinued this design. This one like the OG designs, but it should. This one should be there.
Okay, I'm gonna check it out. Thank you all.
Thank
thank
you
you
Thanks,
for
Justin.
asking.
Thank you.
for recording.